What's up, guys? Rideshare guy here, and today I've got a video for you with a little NYE 2016 recap. So we're going to talk about what New Year's Eve was like for Uber drivers, why there was so much surge, and what can we expect for the future. So I actually didn't drive on New Year's Eve because frankly I didn't think it would be that profitable, and looking back I can say it was probably a big mistake. Whoops. Probably would have made a lot of money if I actually went out and drove on New Year's Eve, but instead I hung out, saw some friends, went and hung out at a buddy's house. I actually ended up paying for a 6.6x surge ride in LA myself. Luckily I had a $20 ride coupon, so it was only 20 or 30 bucks. I wasn't going very far, but still. So I saw what the surge was like. I mean, I was keeping an eye on the app and kind of just kicking myself. I said, we probably could have made a lot of money from driving, but really what we saw this year, 2016 New Year's Eve, it was pretty much a 180 from last year, right? And back in 2015, last year, we saw not very much surge, and I think that this year was really a 180. We saw up to 9.9x surge, maybe even a little bit higher. We had all the typical articles and writers complaining the next day on social media and saying, oh, look what Uber did to me, right? And I even saw one receipt that said it was an Uber XL ride. I think it was $1,100. I think it was Canadian dollars. So I think that's a little bit less in US, but still it's pretty crazy. I mean, personally, I think that's way too much, but at the same time, Uber, if you're going to take Uber as a passenger, you kind of have to own up to it, right? They make you type in the surge. They give you all those warnings. So if you're out wasted and you're drunk and you type in 9.9, then you got to pay for it. So, that's kind of my take on the passenger side of things. But really, so for you drivers, I mean, we're probably wondering, why was there so much surge? And we obviously don't know. We can kind of predict, and maybe we predict well, maybe we don't, but we think about it. And looking back, I would say that I definitely don't think there were more riders out this New Year's Eve than normal. I mean, I think there was, there's always a ton of people out on New Year's. I think if anything, Uber really sent out more notifications this year than ever to riders about, hey, here's how you avoid surge. They even sent out one graph to my passenger account on Uber that showed the same graph that they show drivers, when peak demand at 10 p.m., 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. They sent that out to riders. So it's really interesting. If you guys haven't signed up as an Uber passenger, I definitely recommend that you do that, because you'll even get these communications in addition to actually going and taking a ride, which is one of my big recommendations, my big tips for new Uber drivers, because you'll learn a lot. You'll get a lot of insight. They'll give you guys your first free ride with Uber. You can use my link and grab a quick ride for free. But I think last year, since it was so disappointing for drivers, right? 2015 New Year's Eve, I think I even did a YouTube video on it talking about and recapping that, hey, there just wasn't much surge. There were a lot of passengers out, but there were just a ton of drivers. Some drivers made decent money after midnight, but still, it just wasn't very profitable. And I think that since last year was so disappointing, basically on New Year's Eve, a lot of drivers this year stayed in. I mean, I stayed in. I know a bunch of my friends that are drivers stayed in. So I think that that's kind of what happened. Obviously, there were a ton of drivers on the road, and the drivers that did drive made a lot of money and did really well. So kudos to them. But I mean, I think that had a lot to do with it, that since last year was so disappointing, a lot of people stayed in and didn't drive. And I mean, frankly, in 2015, we did see a lot of the biggest events, Halloween, July 4th, that typically in the past have been pretty lucrative and pretty profitable for drivers. They haven't been nearly as profitable, right? Uber and Lyft have offered guarantees, maybe that, and they had hard terms to meet, and, people weren't out, a ton of people were out driving. They were pulling in drivers from all of other cities nearby for big events or concerts or whatever it was. I thought that Uber was really doing a better job at kind of like limiting that super high 5 to 10x surge, which we really haven't seen in a while. So, I mean, for drivers, it was a good thing, because if you went out and drove, I think some of the best drivers actually went out and made $1,000 during that night. Maybe they're on XL Select. Obviously, you can make a little more, but definitely, I'm hoping that it's a trend that's going to continue, because obviously rates are definitely lower across the board, and those big events are always nice because you can go in and take advantage of some pretty high surge. So definitely excited to see what happens in 2016. I think we have a couple of big events, concerts, and obviously all the typical July 4th, Halloween type holidays that are somewhat far away, but I'll be curious to see if kind of the trend reverses in 2016 and these big events start to be really profitable again. So if you guys drove on New Year's Eve, I'm curious to hear your take. What'd you think? Did you go out there? Did you make a lot of money? Was there a lot more surge? How to compare to years prior? Or if you're brand new, what'd you think? Let us know, and feel free to like, share, comment on the video. I'll make sure that I get back to you. And until then, take care.